What's going on, guys? My name is Christopher and welcome to It's Complicated, the show where I talk about and showcase wristwatches. So if you love watches like I do, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and then click on the bell and you'll be on your way. Today, we're going to be talking about the current Rolex market. Specifically, we're going to be looking at some sold listings on eBay. Here we go. So I am sure, as all of you know by now, Rolex sports models, or professional models as Rolex wants to call them now, are extremely hard to come by. That's right, you can go to any Rolex authorized dealer in this country and go try to find yourself a Batman, or go try to find yourself a Pepsi, or even a Submariner, and there's not going to be any there. Now, gray market dealers are selling these professional models like crazy for well over MSRP, which is just madness. Even my AD is pulling stuff like this now. They have a used section and they are selling the Sea Dweller red letter with the Cyclops. They're selling that for almost $14,000. Granted, brand new, that watch is $9,200, I believe. So I figured, why not just take a look at the market for some of these professional models and see what they actually sell for. First up is the new Batman on the Jubilee bracelet, okay? You guys might have seen Clyde's stream where he talked about this, but one just sold on the 13th of June for almost $20,000. That is pretty much double MSRP. Now, Clyde mentioned in his video that whoever paid that much money for that Batman on the Jubilee kind of screwed over everybody else. Because now, all of these gray market dealers with a Batman on Jubilee, they're going to want 20 grand for it. That's just how the business works. And what's crazy to me is back in late May of this year, I'm talking 2 weeks before that one sold for $20,000, somebody paid $18.5 for one. So why did the guy that paid 20 grand for it pay 20 grand when he might have been able to get it for 18.5? It's just crazy. Now here's a new Batman on a Jubilee that somebody's asking $24,000 for. And if somebody buys it at that price, then the rest of the dealers will raise their prices as well. And everybody's going to try to get $24,000 for one. Now that's just the new Batman on the Jubilee with the updated movement. Here's a look at the discontinued Batman on the Oyster bracelet, and those are selling for right around $15,000. Now, speaking of Batmans, here's a fake Batman that one person placed a bid for $10,000 for. Hopefully that person was one of these guys from like the Rolex forums, and sometimes what they do is when they catch a fake on eBay like that, they will put in an enormous bid for like $1 million or whatever, so nobody can outbid them, and then of course they don't pay when that auction ends. So hopefully that's what happened there. Now, let's go have a look at the Pepsi that came out last year on that Jubilee bracelet. And you guys remember last year, I think one sold for like $27,000, something ridiculous like that. Well, it's not quite selling for that high now, but it is selling for way above MSRP. Here's one that sold for $16,500, and here's another one that sold for $18,500. Keep in mind, the MSRP on the Pepsi is $9,250. Here in America, same with the Batman. You guys know the Daytonas are selling like fire, and they have been for 30 years now. And the MSRP on a Rolex Daytona in steel is $12,400. But here's one that sold for $24,000, just about double MSRP. And here's another one that sold for $24,000. Just crazy. Now, the black Rolex GMT Master 2, that one also got discontinued. That one's also selling well above MSRP. Not as much as the Batman or the Pepsi. Here's one at $11,500, and here's another one that sold for $11,900. Keep in mind, MSRP is $9,250, as I mentioned, so that's still about 20% higher than MSRP. Now let's check out some Submariners. Here is a Rolex Submariner date in green, also nicknamed the Hulk, that sold for almost $14,000. Now that watch isn't discontinued or anything, but it is just so popular that it is selling on the gray market for almost $5,000 above MSRP. Nuts. Even regular Submariner dates are selling for over MSRP. Here's one that sold for 10.5, and here's one that sold for 10,600. Keep in mind, a Rolex Submariner date where I live after sales tax is just a little over $9,000. So these Submariner dates are even selling for well over $1,000 above MSRP. And you know something? Frankly, last year at this time, I thought by this year at this time, at least the Submariner dates and the Submariners would be a little easier to come by, but they certainly are not. And I'm starting to think that Rolex is going to do a lot of work to keep this shortage going, because I think it's absolutely great for the brand. Everybody wants stuff that they can't have. So you got people paying well over MSRP for all these different watches. And sure, there's a lot of you out there that don't like the Rolex brand, and you're not going to pay over MSRP for any kind of watch or anything for that matter. But today I have shown you guys how much money people are willing to spend, sometimes almost double, to get that watch that they can't find. And that's just good for the Rolex brand. But I still think Rolex is just enjoying this. I think if they really wanted to, of course, they would up production. But since they're not upping production on their watches, it's making their brand a little more exclusive. You know, it's making it harder to come by a Rolex Submariner. It's making it harder to come by a Rolex GMT Master 2. And that wasn't the case even 2 years ago. And that wraps up another episode of It's Complicated. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, like this video, share it with all your friends, and I'll see you next time on another episode of It's Complicated.